Hello, everybody. On the occasion of International Women's Day, Potteryden is doing a special women podcast about few women who have created their niche in their field. And I'm so excited that we have a special guest coming from New York, Neha Fernandes, who is a cinematographer by profession, working and creating her own world in New York. So, welcome, Neha.
Hi, thank you.
And I'm really excited to know more about this field because I believe that this field is still to explore for women. There are not many women working on this platform. So I'm looking forward to hear more stories and more experience from your side. To start with, first, tell me about your background. You are a young woman. So, from which college and from which city you belong to, so that we can start how the education and how the background of yours.
Sure. Oh, so I'll tell you how I got into film as well. So I'm originally born and raised in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Parents came from India, settled there. And actually, originally I wanted to be an engineer. So from like sixth standard to 10th standard, I was telling people, yeah, I'll be an engineer. Makes sense. I'm good at math. Father's an engineer. It makes sense.
Right.
And then in the 10th standard, I took one computer science class and I failed the class and I got an F. So at that point, I was like, oh crap, like I have to go to college and do something. What do I do?
Right.
And when I was younger, I would always like make just home videos with my friends. Like I loved making music videos. I loved directing them for little short sketches that I had. So I decided, okay, I'll take one film class in high school, see how I feel. And I loved it so much. It was immediately like the thing that I knew I had to do. So my parents basically said, they're extremely supportive, especially for, Indian parents. They're extremely supportive. But their one caveat was, we'll support you as long as you get into a good film school. And because, we want to set you up right for the future.
Right.
So I said, okay, that's the goal. And I managed to get into NYU, New York University, the Tisch School of the Arts. And from there on, I went there for college for 4 years, and it was immediately I knew like this is what I have to do with my life.
Wow.
In terms of being into camera specifically, I feel like I've always been a more tomboyish girl. Like when I was growing up, I would do karate. I have a black belt in karate. Like I kind of like to match the boys at their level. So when I got into film school, I would look at all these boys doing the camera and lighting classes, and it felt like a boys' club. Like it almost felt like women aren't allowed. Women
Yeah.
won't know technologically, or women aren't strong enough to do the lighting stuff. And that immediately piqued my interest, and I was like, okay, I want to try to do what these guys are doing and see if I can be equally as good, if not better, than what they're doing. So that's how we got here, huh?
So, to start with, you had some few women to look up to, or in general, you had some women who influenced you in personal life as well as this field as well.
Oh, in terms of personal life, actually, the answer to both is women in my family. So, first and foremost, my mom. My mom is a beast. She is a VP executive at her company, manages so many teams of men. Um, in fact, I have a funny story about her. When she was going to school in Pune, she had to take one accounting class in college, and she hated accounting. It was her least favorite subject. And so, because of that, she made an effort to be the first in her class in accounting. So that's the kind of woman she is. She never settles for, average. Like she is always striving to be the best and most competent and, putting her best foot forward.
Not giving up and,
Oh, exactly. And then also her mom, my Gigi, she has always inspired, back then, when she was getting married, women were not working so much. She got married at 19. Typically, you stay as a housewife, but she is an author. She is a lawyer also. She's another very strong, powerful woman in my family. And then the last one is my other grandmother, actually has been working in Bollywood in set design for 40 years. She was the set designer on Sholay. And for 40 years, she was a single mom of two kids, and she, was making an effort to be in the film industry and like be present and seen. So all of these women, like directly in my family, it's like I have a lot to live up to, and so I try my best to, basically.
They've set the standard high.
Exactly. Thank God. I'm very grateful that they have, because it makes me want to push myself even more. Oh.
So now knowing about your field, what do you think that some of the specific challenges women are facing in this field, and how they can work towards overcoming the challenges?
Yeah, so I think the obvious answer is the biggest challenge is that men expect you to not know what you're doing. Like, there are a lot of times where I come onto set and I'm the gaffer, for example, which is the head of the lighting department, or I am the cinematographer. And the automatic assumption is, oh, you're an art design, or you're the makeup artist. You know what I mean? Like, it's immediately doubted that you're there to do the job that the men are doing. And so I think, like, a huge challenge for me is I feel like when I come on to set, a lot of times I have to work triple as hard as the men around me just to even establish that I deserve to be there. You know, it's like it's not
So you have to work little extra.
I have to work extra just to meet I have to work extra just to meet them at the baseline, because for men it's like, oh yeah, of course he's here doing lighting. For me it's like I have to prove why I deserve to be here. But then outside of those like obvious factors, I think another huge problem, and this might sound controversial, but I think it lies within the women themselves, and let me explain. I think we as women tend to over apologize for ourselves very often. So for example, when I'm on set, like it's so much of like the women are saying, sorry, I'm doing this, sorry, I'm doing that, I'll be better, I'll do better. And the men are never apologizing. They can make the stupidest mistakes and they just own up to it. Like, yeah, I meant to do that. And it's like, so we're constantly having to defend and apologize and say sorry.
Right.
And so I firmly believe that the way to overcome it is we need to be comfortable taking up space. Like, women need to be comfortable coming to set, saying, this is what I've come here to do. I'm not going to apologize. And I'm going to work damn hard, and you're going to see why I deserve to be here. I want to take up space, be authentic, and still be kind and respectful, but show them, like, there's a reason why I've been hired to be here. And I'm not just going to say sorry because I've been made by society to feel like I should.
So do you think that the upbringing matters, or the confidence, once we get it, then we reach to that position?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mom has never been apologetic. She is completely, freely, unapologetically herself in the way she behaves, in the way she acts. You know, the way I see it is like, we're all going to die eventually anyways. Why would I waste time overly explaining myself to people who don't deserve to hear it? Like, I'm going to just come and do the best job I can, and that's that.
Right.
And luckily, yeah, my mom was the one who kind of set that in me at an early age.
So we would like to know that how your day starts, how the work line is lined up, and what kind of special projects, or what kind of projects you are working currently, or what kind of work actually you do.
Oh, so it depends. To be honest, I like to call myself a jack of all trades. Like, I do lighting, I do camera, I do like post-production, I do acting. So for me, it's like it's whatever I can get hired and paid for, I like to do it, except for sound. I've never but for me, the day, like, the jobs kind of sometimes they come in a month in advance, sometimes they come in 2 days in advance. Um, but generally, like, the things I have coming up right now are cinematographer gigs. So actually, like, back when I was in school, I graduated 2 years ago. I always knew that I wanted to be a cinematographer, but I was very intimidated. You know, it's not so easy when you graduate to, especially as an Indian woman in America on camera, it's not so easy to just say, okay, I'm going to go and do the cinematography for these things, you know? And so for the first 2 years, I actually wasn't doing cinematography at all. I kind of got sucked into the lighting world with all of these men because that's what was paying me. Um, and so for a very long time, like, I was just really actively working to kind of keep up with them and learn everything that they had to know. And luckily, I will say, thank God for me, I have amazing, amazing men in my life who are in the industry, who were patient with me, who wanted to help me learn, who wanted to teach me everything because they saw the potential.
Yes.
So now, after 2 years, I had worked so hard on building up my lighting skills. And finally, last December or so, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go be a cinematographer again. You know, like, that is what I always wanted to do. So luckily in December, I had a job come my way. And actually, a lot of the jobs that I'm doing as a cinematographer are mostly women sets. I recently was the gaffer for an all Indian, all female set in America, which was amazing. Like that's so rare. And I also am a part of a lot of queer sets where, you know, the cast and the director may not feel as comfortable with men being the cinematographer. So basically, to answer your question, like I've now kind of found my niche. Like I've utilized my strengths as a woman who's queer, who is of color, and I know what works for me, and I know like what my demographic is. So now a lot of the things I have coming up, I have 2 acting jobs coming up in April and March, and then I also have 3 or 4 cinematography jobs for music videos, short films coming up, and they're all directed by women, and they're all mostly a female cast, and that is like my happy place. Not to say I don't like working with men. Sometimes men are great on set, but other times they're really not. So my safe space is definitely like I've sort of found this safe space in these mostly female sets, and they love having me because, you know, like I think I come with the power on set and I know what I'm doing, and so they like having that masculine energy in a woman, so to speak. You know, like that's how maybe someone else would put it.
So I guess we will be looking you in front of camera as well, other than behind camera.
Yeah, I auditioned for something before I came, and 2 days ago found out I got cast in it for April. So I'm very happy. Yeah, thank you.
Can you share any specific moment or any experience, so which kind of shaped your perspective towards this line of work where you are working?
Yeah, so when you ask me this, I have an extremely specific memory that comes to mind immediately. So back when I started really actively working in lighting, I was still kind of like a baby, you know, I still didn't know that much, but I had been signed on to work on a feature as like one of the, you know, lower peg people on the lighting team. And all of the people on the lighting team besides me were men, and I knew that they all knew so much more than I did. So it was a very intimidating thing to come onto. Um, so on day 2 of that set, we actually had like just like a horribly chaotic turn of events situation where one of our pieces of equipment couldn't come. So we had to pull everything from our truck and set up all of these lights down this extremely long road outside at night. And it was just very stressful for someone who at the time, 2 years ago, was like, oh my God, like I don't know what we're, you know, they would call for one piece of equipment and I'd bring the wrong thing. And I just felt really insecure in my space, you know? And so at some point after things had kind of like once they had started rolling and the setup was done, I had a time to breathe. And I went up to my friend. He's now actually my closest work colleague. His name is Jackson. And we didn't really know each other that well, but he was my key grip and I was his grip. So I went up to him and I just said, dude, listen, like, I know big girls don't cry on set. I know like I need to be professional, but I just want to break down and cry right now because this is extremely stressful. I feel stupid. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm holding us back. And he looked at me and he said, okay, first of all, know that it's okay to cry. He said, I feel the exact same way as you do, and I have more experience. And even I know that this is extremely stressful right now. So don't feel like insecure about wanting to cry. Sure. And that meant a lot. And then fast forward later in the night, when we're wrapping up all the equipment, there was one really like heavy light that they had on like a really tall stand with wheels. And the road is pretty uneven, right? So he basically asked me, he was like, okay, Neha, I want you to like push this light to the truck so we can pack it. And I looked at him and I was like, no, like I'm not strong enough. It's going to fall over. Like I cannot do that. And he just looks me square in the eyes and he says, Neha, I want you to listen to me. I know you're strong enough to do it. You're too scared to do it. And that was like huge for me. Like in my brain, it was like, okay, like he was like physically, like I know physically you can move this light and you won't break it. But you're in your head too scared to do it because you think you're going to mess up. And so I was like, okay. And I moved the light and I did it. He was right. I was able to do it. And then we had 4 more weeks of that set because it was a feature length. And every single week in those 4 weeks, like he would come up to me and say, I'm seeing how much you're growing. I can see how much you're improving. You're doing so much better. But it was that moment, like for a man to say to me, like, you are as strong as I am and you can do it. Like that was huge because I never heard, you know, women are constantly supporting each other and uprising each other, but it's not that often that a man says to you, like, you are equally as good, if not better. Yeah. And so now he's literally like my closest work friend. We work on everything together. He's my gaffer when I'm a cinematographer. But that, like, it made me very emotional. Yeah. Great. And it really set in my head. Like now, actually, when I'm on set, a lot of times other girls will come up to me and be like, oh, you're a badass. I wish I could do what you do. And I literally look at them, I'm like, you can. Like, if you wanted to, like, I know that you can. Like, it's not as hard as it seems. The men just make you think that it's like difficult and that it's more complicated than it is.
So maybe we are used to doing, light stuff or, delicate things
Right.
from childhood.
Right.
So we don't, sometimes we back off and, restrict ourselves
Right.
to go and just try something new, adventure kind of thing.
Exactly. And I get not every girl wants to be the macho girl or whatever, and so they don't have to. But for me, I get a lot of, it's very empowering when I can literally carry as much weight as a guy on set, or if I'm carrying more than them, like 4 sandbags or 2 stands in each hand, you know what I mean? So that was the moment for me where I was like, okay, like I'm just as strong as these guys are, and I'm just as capable of learning everything that they've learned. They just had a head start. But that doesn't mean that I can't also.
So, in general, what changes you would like to see in the society where the society can be more inclusive towards women, and probably we can understand each other's strengths to go and have a better life?
Yeah. So this is a very complex question. I think there's a lot of things that women would like to see changed, right? So my answer, let's talk specifically in terms of like this career.
Yes.
My answer would be I would like to see more classes and courses that are actually geared towards women. So that's not to say like obviously in NYU they had a camera class. They had, camera 1, 2 and 3, and obviously women were allowed to take that class. But it is this like feeling of like, oh, like it's intimidating, like I don't want to be in the all boys camera class. And so I'm hesitant to say like I do think if there were more classes like camera for the working woman or like lighting for the working woman, I really think that would just inspire and show girls like, hey, this is also something that you can do, right? But I know that I'm also hesitant to say that a bit because then it can kind of do the opposite effect where women are like, well, why do we have to have our own class? Like, is it a stupider class or something? That's not what I want. I just think there needs to be more acknowledgement in the educational system and like just on set and around set in general that women can do these things also. Because I know for me, like when I was in school, like I didn't take my camera classes until like the end of the end because I was just like, oh, it's a little bit scary. Like, what if all these guys? And I remember when I actually took the camera class, I also was feeling insecure. Like, oh, all these guys know so much more than me because they've been researching since they were 16 and they know what they wanted to do.
Right.
So it is kind of a slippery answer, I suppose. But in my personal opinion, if they had more camera, lighting, even just like, forget this industry, even just think about like metal shop, but like just different classes that are more masculine, typically like jobs that they've made a class for women to feel empowered in. I think we would see a lot more girls doing these things because they then know like, oh, this is the space for me to learn how to do it.
Right.
Instead of having to feel like they're being mansplained to or they can't learn it on their own or something. Yeah.
So I guess we have to make them aware, whoever is right now studying. If we talk more and more about these careers and make them aware that these things are open and you can try as a career path as well.
Exactly. And it's not just like, yeah, exactly.
So, as we are celebrating International Women's Day, what message you would like to tell for the upcoming students who are actually thinking about these career paths to pursue?
I think the number one thing that I would want to say to the women and the young women especially is that you can do what these men are doing. You are strong enough, you are smart enough, and I do think you are kinder than any of them deserve. So once again, like don't be scared to take up space, like own our minds and our bodies in the way that they do all the time carelessly, like let's feel that empowerment within us and let's show them why they have been wrong to stifle us this entire time. Because ultimately, like we are so much more powerful than I think they even realize and so much more capable of creating things than people give us credit for.
So, On the occasion of International Women's Day, thank you so much, Neha, for giving us all the insights about your career path. And I'm sure that a lot of people from our listeners will take up this challenge, inspiring your story. And happy Women's Day to all.
Yeah, happy Women's Day. Thank you for having me.
Same here.
It was a very fun time. Thank you.